me, and there are people also
Yep.
joining in Zoom. And I don't have two screens currently, so I can't really see. But the good thing is you can hear me and I don't hear myself. So that's wonderful. So I can actually
Yes.
keep doing it. And I'm really happy. All right,
Excellent. Excellent.
started.
Yes,
I'm so
let's do
excited
it.
here. So, for those who just joined, my name is Rosemary. If you've never seen me, well, welcome. I'm Rosemary, but I just go by Rose. And I'm the founder of She Tribe, a sisterhood community focused on helping Black women feel happier, healthier, and more successful together. As part of my services, I offer yearly wellness retreats in Africa, group coaching, and individual coaching, as well as other events. And so, as part of the membership or the community that I have, we have every month a different expert helping us reach these goals that I just mentioned: happier, healthier, more successful. And to this month, we have the honor of having Tish, who's here to teach us how to be healthier and also happier with yoga and mantras.
Mhm.
Tish is a certified doula, a mindset coach, a meditation and yoga teacher. And so we have the honor of having her here, and we're going to have conversations around yoga, mantras, pregnancy, everything in between, everything that she does. So welcome. Thank you for joining.
Hey, y'all. Hey, it is such an honor to be here, Rosemary. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak to the collective. It is truly an honor.
Thank you for joining. So yeah, basically, could you tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you happen to be in the industry or the world that you're in, the work that you do, the service that you offer? Tell us a little bit about
Sure, yeah. So, I believe that my purpose in this life is to heal. And I understand that that takes many different forms, right? One of those forms is through yoga and meditation, which has helped me greatly in my own practice as well as my students. Another form is as a doula, right? When learning about the maternal mortality rates here in the United States, especially its impact to Black and women of color, it's staggering. So I thought, what's another way that I can help? And also, what's another way that I can educate myself about conception and pregnancy through a conscious lens? So that way I can determine whether or not I want to be a mom, because I currently am not. I'm a godmother to 7 beautiful, sweet souls. So they definitely keep me on my toes and have taught me a lot. And I harness those learnings and my education to help guide moms and birthing folks through their pregnancy journeys in a conscious way where they feel empowered and informed and can have the birth that they desire. So yeah.
that. I love that. I
Mm-hmm.
myself used doula for my first pregnancy and my second as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I am really an advocate for women to take more control of their pregnancy, but also delivery, and through the help of a doula. So I think it's beautiful the work that you do, helping us women know, get to know ourselves better and get to understand our powers and know that we can do this. Our bodies was created to do this. We got this.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I can definitely say when attending my doula certification, that was the sex education class that I never had, that I didn't know that I needed. I learned so much about the ancestral like wisdom that resides within our bodies, things that aren't talked about because they're viewed as taboo or unsavory, when in actuality, this is what our body naturally does. And as you said, we are equipped, we are capable of doing this as long as we honor those natural processes. And that sometimes comes into conflict with modern medicine, which has had fantastic leaps and bounds in advancement in terms of helping moms to be able to survive their pregnancies and for babies to survive the journey of coming here earthside. So my job as a doula is just to help bridge that gap, right? To make sure that the natural process is being honored and to ensure that the medical staff, right, is on board with what mom wants, as well as first and foremost, making sure that both mom and baby are healthy and safe, and whatever it takes to get them both through to the other side safely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess that the use of yoga and how yoga comes into all of this is
Mhm.
that you use this with your clients as well. So could you tell us a little bit about, for those of us, I mean, I've been practicing yoga for many years now, and I
Mhm.
can't wait to actually finally get my yoga certification for myself and also perhaps maybe teaching in the future. But for those that are watching and who have heard of yoga, maybe tried it once and like, this is not for me, or have some doubts about it, could you tell us a little bit about the basics? What is yoga and why is it so good for us?
Oh, yes. It's interesting because the irony is so many of us practice yoga and we don't realize it. We call it something else, right? So, yoga was originated in the Indus Valley, which is where modern day Pakistan is today, right? And so, the practice of yoga or yog in traditional Sanskrit pronunciation is to connect your individual consciousness with the universal consciousness, right? Tish, what is consciousness? What are you even talking about? That's a new word. I don't understand. So essentially, how do you connect to the world around you and to the people around you? And also, how do you connect with yourself, right? Are you aware? Are you conscious of how you are living your life and how you are interacting in your relationships with other people and with other objects, right? And so for me, this practice arose actually after the passing of my father. He transitioned off of this plane back in 2016, and I was having a very difficult time with the concept of mortality, specifically my own mortality. Like I knew logically that everyone will eventually transition on at one point or the next. And the anxiety arose from the question, what am I doing with my life? Right? How am I living my life? Am I really doing the things that I want to do? Am I living fully? Am I being present? Or have I been asleep at the wheel all this time? And so I started practicing yoga so that way I could be more aware, more mindful about how I was living my life and the impact that I was making on this world. And this world, obviously I'm not reaching all the people like, out in New Zealand, like, hey, if you're from New Zealand and you're on here, great. But in my world, right? My friends, my family, my loved ones, my community, how am I impacting them? um, and is it making me truly happy, right? Do I find joy every day waking up? So that's how I personally got into yoga. uh, the first legitimate yoga class that I experienced was actually a yin yoga class, which is where you hold the poses for an extended period of time. They are supported with props and bolsters and blankets, and everything is on the ground for the most part. And that allows your connective tissues to really lengthen and open up. And during that class, I experienced something shift within me that I can't put into words. I just remember how I felt. I felt so grounded and connected that it brought me to tears. Honestly, I was on my mat crying the first class. And when I spoke to the instructor afterwards, who eventually would be my yin mentor today, shout out to Naomi. Uh, she advised me. She said, you've been called. Like you're awake now, and now that you're awake, you need to shine your light. You are a light bringer. So, whatever format you choose to do that, go forth. And it just happens to be in the form of yoga as well as meditation, and now doula too.
I love that. I really, really love that. And so I have been practicing yoga for many years, but I only heard about the different types of yoga only a couple of years ago: yin yoga, restorative yoga, ashtanga, and all of that. Could you tell us a little bit more about what are these differences and what does it mean? Because for some people practice yoga just like as a stretching exercise after workout. Maybe they run a lot and they do that. And some people do that to calm down a bit, to de-stress, kind of, you know,
Mhm.
they maybe do restorative yoga, or even just a regular vinyasa flow, but just to kind of, I don't know, connect with their bodies and mind and
Mhm.
calm their minds. But you know, could you tell us a little bit about the different types of yoga and what are the benefits, or how do you choose which one is right for you?
Absolutely. So the different forms of yoga actually arose from the different lineages or tribes that were practicing yoga in the Indus Valley. So we are the most familiar with asana based yoga. So physical postures, your forms, the shapes that you make with your body. But that is just one aspect of yoga. And there are many different ways to practice physical asana, like physical forms. So I previously mentioned yin yoga, right? There's also, like you mentioned, ashtanga yoga or vinyasa style yoga that's more of a flow, right? Here in the West, we're familiar with hot yoga and power yoga, right? But there are other aspects to yoga outside of asana. So, for example, if we are looking at the great sage Patanjali and his Yoga Sutras, Ashtanga yoga actually is derived from the Eightfold Path or the eight limbs of yoga, where asana is just one of those branches. Meditation is another branch. Pranayama, breath work, is another branch. You have the yamas and niyamas, or the external and internal observances within your own life and how you navigate the world around you. Concentration is another one. So there's all these different forms. And one of the biggest reasons why we in the West are not as familiar with these other forms is because back in the 80s and 70s, we were experiencing an exercise craze here, right? So we had aerobics that was happening, group style classes, group style fitness that was going on, and yoga was brought over here from into the West. And we thought, oh, this is great. This is another way to kind of complement the weight training that's happening, or the cycling, or the aerobics that's happening to stretch, right? To maintain flexibility and mobility. And all of the, or a good portion of the traditional philosophy, even some of the religious aspects, were removed, or some may even say whitewashed out of the practice because it conflicted with Catholicism and Christianity and the modern day beliefs and practices of the United States. So he said, you know what, we're going to leave all the woo woo stuff out of it, and we're just going to focus on how we feel in our bodies with asana.
Exactly. And that bridges in very well into a question or the concern that a lot of people have that are maybe religious, people who are Christian or
Yeah.
Muslim. I personally don't know many Muslims who have an issue with practicing yoga or not, but mainly I hear of Christians
Mhm.
because I grew up in a Christian family, and most of the people around me are Christians. And I know of a lot of Christians who are against yoga or against practicing yoga because they believe that if you practice yoga, then therefore you're believing in a certain religion or practicing a religion. How could you share a little bit about that? What's your opinion of that? Or, you know,
Absolutely, yes. So that is a very valid concern, I would like to say, first and foremost. And I believe that the way to navigate that concern is through education, right? Learning more about the philosophies of yoga, and also seeing the similarities between yogic practices and Christianity, right? Some some are quoted as saying that Jesus Christ was like one of the original yogis, right, from back in the day, because he practiced being conscious and aware. He practiced, love thy neighbor, right? He practiced honoring that which is greater, right? God, the Father, the universal consciousness. So there are a lot of similarities between the two practices, and there are some differences as well. And I think the part that most folks get tripped up on is a lack of education around the ability to coexist, right? So two truths can exist at the same time, right? They don't necessarily negate the other. And if you allow them to, they can honestly combine to form something that's even grander, right? Or that resonates more deeply within your own practice. So for example, for me, my family, my mom was Methodist, right? So Christian Methodist. My dad, Roman Catholic. My schooling was all Catholic, even up through college. I attended Marist College for my undergrad, and the year that I attended, I think 2 years prior to that, they were still technically Catholic college. And the Marist brothers still, facilitate curriculums and, have heavy involvement. That being said, I still find myself, even in my prayers, even in my conversations with consciousness, right? I call it now God, Gail, and the universe, because God is the label, right? Is the name that I was taught about all throughout school, the Father, right? And in my studies, I said, well, hey, if there's this balance between masculine and feminine, I haven't heard of a feminine name for God, and the two can coexist. So I said, what's a really cool sounding, omnipotent name of a woman figure, right? So I came up with Gail, the winds, right? Very powerful and fluid and flowy, right? And then also throughout my practice, I wondered, well, I'm sure that there's something beyond just masculine and feminine, right? That gender binary, standard that has been programmed into my brain that I am consciously working on reframing. And so I said, well, there's things beyond this realm of existence too that contribute to my practice. For example, like my dad who transitioned, I know that he's still with me, but what do I call that, right? In Catholicism, it might be called, spirit, right? Or the Holy Spirit, or some may call it a ghost, right? And I chose the universe for an all-encompassing thing that makes sense in my brain to what I cannot physically touch, but what I intuitively know exists and impacts me on a spiritual level. So yeah, God, Gail, and the universe is my version of Christianity, Catholicism, and yogic practices, and my spiritual practice, all coexisting together, and being valid.
I love that. So in your masterclass, you talked to us about the use of mantras, and to a lot of people, this might be something that they're not aware of, or something that triggers them when they hear mantra. Again, it takes them to, ooh, that's a specific religion. That's maybe the reason why they don't practice yoga, because they think when they do, they have to say these things that they don't understand. And some even go as far to say that because you don't understand it and you repeatedly say it, you're inviting a specific evil spirit into life or something like that, or whatever. I've heard a lot of things. So what are mantras, and how do you incorporate that into your wellness routine or your practice? What's the use of it?
Yes. So again, education is key here, right? So the word mantra has two root words in Sanskrit. So the first part being man, mind, thinking brain, right? The second being tra, which has many different transliterations. The most common ones that I've come across in my research have been a tool or a technique, an instrument for the mind. There's a concept in yogic philosophy called the chitta vritti, or the monkey mind, right? Where our anxiety sometimes takes over and our thoughts run faster than our bodies can keep up with them. And so mantras are instruments that help us navigate the mind, or can help to calm the monkey mind that we're experiencing. Mantras are also in traditional philosophy very sacred, right? Sacred words or sounds, lines of text. Some would call them prayers here in the United States, or for those who speak the English language, because there's not really a direct equivalent for the transliteration or for the translation, I should say. But yeah, some would call it prayers, and some would say, no, it's not really a prayer. A little bit of debate there, but it's essentially an instrument of the mind. And the way that we can use these throughout our practice or throughout our daily lives is as an anchor, right? So when we feel our minds starting to wander, there are many different anchors that we can utilize. When we're practicing breath work, we use the breath to anchor our mind. We focus on the inhale and the exhale. When we are practicing asana or physical forms, we use our bodies and alignment cues to anchor our minds into our bodies. With mantras, we use words or sounds or a string of words or sounds to anchor our minds. And some of them, I think, or at least what I'm coming to find, is the word affirmation and mantra are used interchangeably in English, or at least here in the United States, where you are stating positive words to anchor your mind throughout your life, right? So for example, I am love. If you are channeling, wanting to have a more open heart, or being able to receive love, or being able to give love more freely of yourself. I am peace. I am calm. Some of them, they run the gamut. They get really creative, which is fantastic and can be extremely personalized. One of my personal mantras is it's in the form of a question, and I ask myself, is this thought or feeling that is arising? So that way I can anchor my mind when I'm in a ball of confusion between thoughts that are happening and feelings that are bubbling up that I haven't identified yet, right? It's an anchor. Mantras can serve as an anchor for the mind.
I love it. I really love the way you've explained, because it's really that's how I have been using it. And I must say that throughout the years that I've been practicing yoga, in the beginning, I started it when it was actually, I think, my GP who advised that I start yoga, because I suffered a lot from migraines growing up. And it turned out to be that I had a very active brain. So I couldn't sleep at night because my brain was just going, round and round in circles, especially when I was a student. And so I started doing yoga to calm my mind, and practicing, the exercise, because it would help me stretch my neck, but also really anchor me. And it really helped me quite a lot to repeat, not necessarily the words, but I think for me the mantras was in the movements. What kind of anchored me was in the movement, kind of remind myself, okay, and the breath work as well. And it's only in the last few years that I've been using mantras more, or practicing it more, when I practice yoga, by repeating. And I guess one of the most popular one is the sound.
Correct. Yeah.
Most people know, but there's so many, as you said. Sometimes I've seen yoga sessions where people say it so repeatedly they're even in trance or something. It's like something happens to them after a while. So it's really magical, I would say. So thank you for that. Let me check as well if anyone has any questions, at least in the Facebook here. Let me see. Feel free to let us know. I'll be checking it from time to time. And then Tish can answer them. Maybe we can move the conversation to the doula part of your work and the meditation. So you mentioned that you're not currently a mother, but you're the godmother of 7 beautiful kids, and you decided, could you tell us maybe more about how you became a doula, why you became a doula, and go a little bit deeper into why you think women should, women who are considering becoming mothers should work with one.
Yes. So when my sister. She's technically my sister-in-law, but we're close, my brother's wife. So I just call her my sister. And she was pregnant with her first child. I didn't realize that I was serving in some ways as a doula. I didn't know what doulas were back then. This was back in 2007, 2008. I didn't know what doulas were back then. I just knew that I wanted to help my sister have as easy of a pregnancy as possible, and what could I do to help. So I was helping her with laundry, and we would have conversations and talk. If she needed a ride to doctor's appointments or something like that, I was doing those things. I wasn't in the room when she actually gave birth. My brother had that honor. We were, anxiously waiting outside for my sweet first niece to arrive. But that's how I didn't realize it at the time, but that's how it started. And then as she went on to have 2 more daughters, and then my friends started having kids, I was, filling that same role. I was part of their tribe to help assist them through the process of pregnancy. And it wasn't until later on when my partner in doula, her name is Nicole Williams. Her handle on Instagram is at the Well Mommy. We serve as backup doulas for each other. She actually experienced a complication with her second pregnancy due to preeclampsia, and it actually caused her to suffer seizures. It was very intense. It was not looking good for a good period of time, and luckily she was able to pull through. And by the grace of a Black nurse who was advocating for her, as well as her mother and her husband, a dear friend, advocating for her when she couldn't speak for herself, that she was able to get the care that she needed. That was kind of dropped. it wasn't handled with the best of care, I should say. Right, there was distraction that was involved. And so looking at that situation, and then going back and in speaking to other friends and my sister as well about what their experiences were in the hospital setting with their healthcare providers, I started to see that the lack of attentiveness, right, of even being viewed as human regarding pain tolerance was lacking and they were all women of color. And so I was doing some research and learned about maternal mortality rates and how we are at a greater risk of either dying in the pregnancy process or in the delivery process or immediately after delivering at a greater rate than our white sisters or as our Hispanic sisters or Pacific Islander sisters. And I thought, something's got to give. Like there has to be, there's reasons behind why this is happening, and I don't know what they are. And for my own journey, how can I consciously conceive without having a better understanding of what's contributing to this and potential methods to remedy it, right?
Yeah.
So I signed up to become a doula. I had just finished my prenatal yoga certification. There was actually a couple of weeks where the two were running in tandem, so a bit intense, but very grateful for the knowledge. And as I said, that certification program, which was through Mama Glow, based out of Brooklyn, New York, underneath Latham Thomas, who was a fantastic soul. That program really opened my eyes to a lot of the reasons why certain things are either done or no longer done, as well as our inherent divine anatomy, right? And what it's capable of doing in order to get us through the process healthily and safely with minimal intervention.
It's magical. I mean, having gone
Absolutely.
through
Yes,
pregnancy,
truly.
it's just I'm always amazed at what the body is capable of doing without my help. Without my help, and I say, with me having to do very little, the body is always, I mean, doing so much, and all I have to do is basically surrender to it. And
Yes.
so I think pregnancy or becoming a mother or just going through pregnancy humbled me quite a lot to know that, and also taught me that um, it's in the surrendering that you have power. When you're fighting against something, things get
Mhm.
hard. But when you surrender, it gets a lot easier. And a lot of the things you said resonate with me a lot. Obviously, because I'm a black woman, and I know the high mortality rate in the U.S. I'm not sure about the numbers here in Europe, but I know that
Mhm.
black women here in hospitals, have complained a lot about the care that they receive. Also, the pain tolerance that you mentioned. Some For some reason, the medical world thinks that you know, we can handle pain much better than our other counterparts. Perhaps true, perhaps untrue, but it doesn't take away that when we do need pain medication, we should
Mhm.
receive it.
Yes.
So there's a
Yes.
lot of things in the way we're treated, and also the other aspect of here in Europe, a lot of women not speaking the language of the country they live in
Mhm.
sometimes means that they don't know how to express themselves, let alone even if you do speak the language, a lot of women just don't know their rights when it comes
Yes.
to delivery and pregnancy and all of that. And I think for me, that is the reason why I decided to get a doula in the first place. When I first got pregnant, I was living in Ghana at that time. I had moved to Africa.
Mhm.
And my husband and I were deciding whether we would come to Europe or go to the US, as he's an American, to have a baby. And
Mhm.
we decided ultimately for Belgium because my family was here, but also because we thought the healthcare system is way more advanced than in the US, cheaper as well.
Mhm.
And I'm someone who likes to read a lot, so I quite educated myself a lot about, okay, what does a woman go through? What are the things that you can ask for? And I found out about doulas, and I thought, oh, this is really nice. This is something I would love to do to help women actually to support them going through this difficult period of time, bringing another human to earth. And stories I had heard is that in Ghana, a lot of the women giving birth there were kind of mistreated. It's ironic, you would say. I don't know where they learned that from, but a lot of women having babies in Ghana in public hospitals
Mhm.
are not treated nicely. Like they're told, when they're screaming, oh, stop screaming, don't act like this is not a big
Mhm.
deal, blah blah blah. And these are other women treating them like that.
Yes.
I was like, okay,
Yes.
I'm not having this. I'm definitely not going to stay here to have a baby. Obviously, if you go to private hospitals, it's not the same. But I think this mentality um, of just don't complain, just do as you're told. It's everywhere. And I remember when I decided to get a doula and I was asking questions through my pregnancy to my gynae, they were like, do you work in the medical field or something? And I was like, no, but my husband, worked in public health. But I just educated myself quite well. My doula wasn't there and she wasn't allowed to be at the delivery because you're only allowed to have one person. But thanks to
Mhm.
the preparation she gave me and everything, I was able to have my baby pain without pain medication and without cuts or anything. And so I'm so
Beautiful.
grateful to
Beautiful.
have had a doula. The second time, she helped me as well. I also had the baby delivery on my own without pain medication. This third time, I was able to have a water birth, which I always wanted.
Nice.
This
Nice.
time too,
Yes.
without any complications. So I'm really happy, and I know that I was able to do that because I had been supported by a doula before, and my sister
Mhm.
had a baby a month before I had my last one. I was able to also kind of support her, and she also had her first baby pain medication free without
Yeah.
any real complications. I think what are the figures? They say it's 30% or 60% of women who have a doula have less chances of complications or something like that. What are the figures exactly?
Yeah, so doulas have been known to reduce the amount of time that is spent in labor by approximately 30 minutes. They have been known to have a 50% chance of not needing um, pain medication or medical intervention in order to birth as well. There's a general just sense of relief for the expecting mom or birthing person to have a sister essentially in the room who can advocate for them as well. The reduction in C-sections goes down too, because the mom has more ability to ease into her pregnancy, to have time to surrender, to allow the natural processes and opening to happen, so that way a cesarean isn't required, right? It doesn't become medically necessary. Yes, you are absolutely right. There's been this loss of tribal engulfment of an expecting person. And in that loss, there is a lack of support, a lack of education, a lack of confidence, empowerment, in order to get the birthing person through the process safely with a sense of empowerment, right? And also with a sense of relaxation too. There's a phrase that I heard that pregnancy and labor and delivery is intense, and it can also be viewed as a moving meditation if you allow it to be, if you are educated on how to do that, on how to surrender, on how to connect with your own divine intuition, with that ancestral wisdom. Birthing isn't something that just happened, when modern medicine arose a couple hundred years ago. No, women have been giving birth across the globe for hundreds of thousands of years. It's literally encoded into our DNA. Our bodies are hardwired. There are certain processes that are involuntary. We don't have to think about it. We just do it. We just feel into it. And it's the mind, the thinking brain, right? The intellectual, the analytical, which is often associated with the medicine side of things, that can sometimes hinder the natural processes from happening. So you mentioned before using yoga and meditation and mantras as a means of helping you for sleep aid, right? To be able to to be able to fall asleep more quickly and have a more restful night's sleep. Similar occurrence in pregnancy happens, right? So our brain here in the West is measured in terms of brain waves, right? So beta waves are those very short, choppy waves for the thinking brain. And when we're anxious or when we're scared, those spikes get deeper on both sides and they become shorter and more compact. And our brains are just going everywhere. Imagine what the body's response is to that. There's a lot of tension, right? Shoulders, come up towards the ears. We may hold our breath without even realizing it. There's this clenching into the center line that happens, right? And for a baby to descend through the sacred passage, we can't be tense, right? So we can use yoga and meditation to move our brain waves, right? To move from this beta thinking state to a theta wave that's a little bit more elongated, right? Almost like you said, a trance state that has deep calm and relaxation. Some athletes have even deemed this as the zone, right? Where there's this tunnel vision, where they're just focused on the task that they're doing. They're not distracted by anything else. They feel empowered and safe within their environments to do the task at hand. And then there's this moving from a theta wave state into this delta wave state, right? So for the general population who's not an expecting, mom or a birthing person, that would be like when you're in REM sleep, okay? You are knocked out, you're just gone. There might be a little baba or drool coming out to the side, no judgment. We just gonna love up on you even more. You get that rest. But for folks who are delivering, that state can be a place of like cosmic bliss, right? Because you got oxytocin that's flowing through, the love hormone, the bonding hormone, you got adrenaline that's going on. And if you are undistracted and you feel safe and you feel empowered, you're not using your thinking brain anymore in that space. You're feeling into the process. Now, the issue arises when you are slingshot back into beta, because a random nurse just came into the room that you've never seen before, or when they're attempting to do cervical exams that you didn't consent to, or if they are pushing you to have a cesarean because your labor is going longer than 24 hours. Now, are there some very valid medical reasons as to why a prolonged labor can result in a cesarean section? Absolutely. However, there's this other side to it where the healthcare system is a money machine too. There's insurance that's involved, there's liability that's involved, there's a lot of legalese that happens, a lot of intellect, mind, thinking brain that is influencing these very natural, fluid processes, right? So when you say surrender to the process, for medical students, right, they're taught to control all the variables, right? It's not fluid. They're taught to run the tests again, so they're absolutely sure. They're taught very specific procedures to do. They are also taught that pregnancy, they don't necessarily view pregnancy from a natural process. It's viewed from a place of pathology, something that needs to be fixed, right? So you can see how a difference in perspective on pregnancy will impact the approach that is utilized to get a pregnant woman through her pregnancy, right? To support her. And how that also impacts the birthing person's brainwaves too, right? If they're in this thinking state, this anxious state, or if they're in more of a theta state, they're kind of easing into it and eventually in that delta state.
I think it's really amazing. It goes from little things because, as I said, in the 3 times my doula was not able to be there present with me, but thanks to a few tips she was able to give me that I saved up and that I kind of held on to. I remember, like the birthing plan. It's amazing. It's so empowering to know that you have needs and you're allowed to voice them and say, this is what I want, this is what I want. And the fact that I was able to try on different postures the first time when I was having a baby, and they were open to it, was so empowering. And when I told other women, they were like, what? I didn't know you were allowed to. But that's like so sad to hear that they don't know that they have the right to ask not to deliver as a tortoise, that you could just say, I want to sit, I want to be on my back, I want to stand, I want to, whatever it is.
Move.
You want to move, exactly. And that's something that I also said, which meant that they gave me a bigger room so I can move around freely. I wanted to have a hot tub so I can be in the warm water because it helped me. All these things I had to request, and if I didn't know that I had the right to, I wouldn't have asked for it. I also try and do my labor as long as possible at home because I want to be less in the medical atmosphere, because I know that once I get there, they want to control things. And so most times when I get with my firstborn, I got to the hospital, I was at 9 centimeters. So there's nothing they could do but have the baby, to help me have the baby, which meant that I couldn't have an epidural even if I wanted to. It was too late.
Right, it's too late in the game.
Yeah. I still was able to sit in my bathtub, and I think about 2 hours later, my baby was there. And so all these things helped. I think one of the things that my doula had said to me is that once you're ready to push, because they tend to tell you to push sooner than you're ready to push. And for me, it's always been an issue because they would say push, because I come in at 9 and they're like, okay, baby's here, just do it. And I'm like, but I don't feel like pushing. And they would tell you push, push, push. But as you said, the body knows what to do and doesn't need my help. And when the body is ready, when baby's ready to come, I can't help but push. Like I can't stop it by coming out. And so luckily my doula said to me, when you're ready, it will be like when you have to vomit and you feel like that feeling of, but it's from the inside. She said, you'll feel something that is like, oh, it has to come. Then it's time. And she says, imagine your uterus as a flower that's protecting the baby.
There you go.
As you relax, it opens up and baby's safe and baby wants to come and see you. As you tense up, it closes up and protects baby. So longer you're tense, the more it's going to protect the baby, but then baby
Correct.
might panic. And then so she's like, just relax into it. Every time you feel the pain, don't tense up, breathe in, relax. And all these
Right.
things helped me. And I was also doing the affirmation where I was speaking to my baby and saying, okay baby, we're almost
Mhm.
there, help me, work with me, don't be afraid. And these are all things, as you said, you just zone into yourself, you, and it's just you and your baby. The closer you get to time,
Mhm.
the more you become almost like an animal. You're not
Yes.
aware of anything anymore. It's just you and your baby. And
If I
so,
could, if I could speak to that, Rosemary, for just to interject, if we think about it, the images of pregnancy that we have been shown or have been programmed into us are typically in a hospital setting, reclined on their backs with the feet up in the stirrups, right? Even the reproductive wellness exams that are done leading up to pregnancy are in that same format, right? Rarely do we see the primal nature that is birthing. It's a primal process. And as you mentioned earlier, we're told, don't scream, don't yell, you're going to scare, you're going to scare the other patients. Or it's viewed as a negative thing, right? Like you're screaming because you're in so much pain and it's so intense. Yes, it's intense. Yes, there are rushes of contractions that are happening, right? But that's all part of the process. And when you have a lot of that energy that is being expressed out of you, sometimes it comes in the form of vocal toning. It might sound like Lion King and hyenas in the background, right? Like it might sound very primal because birthing is a primal experience. Sexual intercourse is a primal experience, right? And the two go in tandem. The same moans and groans that you might hear to get the baby here are the same moans and groans that you might hear to get the baby earthside, right? But we're not taught that. We're not ever shown that. And when we get into the hospital settings, if we don't have a doula, or maybe by the grace of a doula, educating the birthing person, that's when they're able to realize, like, oh, this is part of the process. I'm supposed to sound like this. This is what's natural, right? And as you said with the affirmations too, that piece, the flower analogy or example, that's a form of visualization, which is
mhm,
also a form of meditation.
yes,
So we don't realize that, as I said earlier, we don't realize that we're actually practicing yoga and meditation sometimes because we call it different things, like visualization.
hmm hmm
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that helped me a lot because I remember she said, every time you have a contraction, you're a step closer to meeting your baby.
Yes.
So see it as something positive and embrace the,
Positive.
instead of saying, oh, I hate it and I don't want it to come, because it means you don't want your baby to come. But we all know you
Right.
do want that. So she's like, every time one comes, it's one less. It's a step closer to you and your
Mhm.
baby. So just relax into it and let it sink down. And so, and I'm thinking, had I not heard this from her the first time, I wouldn't have been able to keep repeating that to myself and being
Mhm.
able to go through this every time, because no matter how many times you've been a mother, each time, or had a baby, you're afraid. And
Mhm.
each time I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? I'm really, I don't want a cesarean. I don't want any pain medication. I just want to do this as naturally as I can. But also, I'm aware that it's not in my hands. So it's always this, ooh, how is this going to go? So bless you for the work that you do. And I cannot wait to get my
Thank you.
certification done as well,
Thank
because there's so many women that need this. And
you.
I would want every woman to learn this so they could just teach everybody. Just for yourself, it's like
Yes,
a first aid. Like everyone should do it. A doula certification,
absolutely.
everyone. It should be,
Absolutely. It should
so
definitely be part of our reproductive education as
exactly,
people who identify as women. Yes.
exactly, so that you can help. Because if that, it would be like, what happens if you see a woman who's pregnant and she's about to have a baby? What can you do to help? Same thing would be,
Right.
it's first aid, but then a bit longer. And
Yes.
there's also postpartum where the doula comes in. So
Yes.
yeah. But thank you so much. This was so exciting and juicy. Could you tell us a little bit more
Thank
about how we
you.
continue to work with you? How can the people watching or who are live or who are going to watch this again? How can they work with you? What kind of services do you offer? If possible.
Yes. Yes. So, where you can find me, my website is thistorres.com. My email address is info@thistorres.com, and my Instagram is @thistorres. I am in the process of transitioning how I am handling my doula clients in the format that I am delivering the content. Previously and currently, it's been individual one-on-one, and I am moving to a group coaching style format called Great Preparations, which is going to launch in August of this year. I'm very excited. It is a 3-month program. Yes, it is a 3-month program that has the education component. There is a pre-recorded library of prenatal yoga, meditations, affirmations, breath work. There is also a live stream component for the delivery of the information, as well as yoga too. And you'll also be in community with the other women in the cohort. And there's an ability for you to work with me as a VIP client or with my partner, Nicole, as a VIP client, and we will actually service as a doula for your labor and delivery as well. So coming up with your birth plan, having a healthcare alignment call with your healthcare providers, and actually serving on the birthday, right, for your labor and delivery. In addition, I'm working on another project with a fellow Black yogi called The Mythic Life of a Melanated Yogi, where we will be exploring the traditional and mythological stories of the foundational yoga poses or asanas. And we will also be connecting those to mythologies and stories from the Black diaspora as well. So that way our communities can relate to the practice and see the two separate truths that are valid individually and how they coexist as well. So that is scheduled to launch in spring of 2022. And I also host community classes through my website. You can sign up. The last Tuesday of every month, I host a community and yoga class. And I will be starting that back up again now that things have kind of calmed down as we move into launch for Great Preparations. But yes,
Nice, nice.
absolutely.
So amazing. So for those of you who haven't watched Tish's masterclass around yoga, mantra specifically, feel free to do so. You can get access to the masterclass by signing up to the membership for free 1 month, and you have access to this masterclass. If you want to see all the other masterclasses, you can be a member of the community for less than $25 monthly. You have access to monthly masterclasses by experts such as Tish, obviously this live Q&A that you have, all the past content that we've had, and so many other benefits. It's been a pleasure to have you here, Tish. I know that you had a meditation for us. So for those who are interested, if you did sign up via Zoom, you'll be able to get all the details. And if you want to have maybe like like a clarity call or something with Tish, or
Mhm.
just to find out a bit more, I will send you all the details. If you're watching this as a replay, you'll get the details as well. So you can reach out to Tish to help you in your wellness journey. If you're an expecting mother or you're thinking, about becoming a mother, I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of benefit in having a doula, even if it's remote, even if the person is not with you. Because
Mhm.
as I said, I was not able to have my doula with me physically in the hospital because that was not allowed. But thanks to the preparation work that I did with her, it allowed me to have the pregnant and the delivery and the pregnancy that I wanted. And so don't think that, oh, well, Tish is in the US, it's far from me. I cannot actually have her physically, so therefore I could not work with her. You can, and it will be very beneficial to you. So do reach out to her if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out to me as well. I hope you enjoyed this session with us today. This is part of something that we do every month. So reach out, check out our website, www.shetribeconnect.com. My name is Rosemary, and thank you so much for joining. Bye bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
everyone. Thank you for joining.
you. Let me see on Facebook, how I end there.